Hello everyone and welcome to ET Studios. Today we're testing the performance of my new VR ready PC that I built for less than a GTX 1070. The build video will be linked in the card above and in its description below. So if you saw the previous video, you know that this is a really cool gaming PC that came together fairly easily. To run over the specs quickly before we continue, it has an i7-3770 processor, a GTX 970 graphics card, 8GB of DDR3 RAM, as well as a 128GB solid state drive, and two 500GB SATA drives. So I apologize if my voice sounds a bit different. First of all, I'm going to be editing this entire video on the new PC, so microphone settings may have been altered slightly. I will be fixing those for future videos. Also, I'm a bit sick at the moment, so I apologize for my voice sounding a little rough. So to continue, we have a few games lined up, as well as a synthetic benchmark and a VR performance test from Steam. So, first up we have PUBG at 1080p high settings with an average of 71 frames a second, a minimum of 27 and a maximum of 104. This was a very respectable average and I am very happy with the performance of this PC. An average over 60 in PUBG at anything over low settings is actually a very big achievement. And this is definitely leagues ahead of any console level performance, so don't even go in the chat and start saying that the consoles are better. Next up we have Just Cause 3 with an average of 64 frames a second, a minimum of 52 and a maximum of 110. Very respectable averages. This is all done at the very high settings and were the settings suggested when I opened the game. Next up we have Space Engineers, a game I play very often on this channel, and that averaged 44 frames a second, had a minimum of 11 and a maximum of 75 on the high settings. Space Engineers is a very unoptimized game at the moment, so they have a few issues. If I cut down the settings slightly and just do a bit more tweaking, it will average out at about 60 frames a second, maybe about mid-50s. So Space Engineers is a bit of an odd one, but I included it because I play it on the channel a lot, and this is actually a fairly decent improvement from the around 35 frames a second I got on my laptop. All this testing was done on the Easy Start Earth, and I fiddled around with the settings, had grass view distance and tree view distance slightly lower than average. Next up we have CSGO, and that at the very high settings maintained an average of 118 frames per second on the Dust 2 map with a minimum of 68 and a maximum of 232. Now, Dust 2 maintained a slightly lower average than a few of the other smaller maps, such as Safe House, and those maps maintained an average of around 150, but I didn't run many benchmarks of those, so I can't give you perfectly accurate figures. Next I tried Fallout 4, but for some reason it kept crashing whenever I wanted to record it, and as soon as I opened my benchmarking software, it crashed as well. So for now, Fallout 4 is going unbenchmarked, but if I do manage to get that done in a future video, I will mention that. 3D Mark also had an issue with the recording software, and afterwards when I tried to restart it, it also stopped working. So 3D Mark, Firestrike was not an option. Next up, Unigine Heaven on the Ultra preset gave us a very respectable average and a great score, so I was very happy and very pleased with the performance of this PC with Unigine Heaven, which is a synthetic benchmark, and you can download it for free. I'll put a link in the description below. Then Steam VR was run with the standard, you can't change the settings or anything, and that gave us a pretty decent average and just said we are ready for VR, so that's nice to know. And of course the GTX 950 is on the minimum for VR, so of course it should be. So thank you everyone for watching this two-part mini-series of me building and getting ready for my new PC, which is going to be the head of the channel now. Of course I've still got my laptop and it still does a lot of things, and I'm sorry to say, but a lot of my previous recordings and footage have disappeared because my external hard drive recently packed up, and that had all of my raw footage, all of my past recordings, game capture, and many of my backups from previous times. So that's going to be a bit of a struggle to get around, and if content isn't quite what you expected it to be in the next few weeks, I'm sorry, but I'll try and get there again, and I hope I do. So thank you everyone for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.